In this episode of On the Go, flock this way, as they say, with Flamingo Fares. It's a new way to pay for transit in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties.
Having the Flamingo Fares account for someone is a great opportunity to ride more and pay less.
Hello and welcome to On the Go, the T-BARTA podcast, where we talk all things related to transit and transportation. And today we're talking about a new way to pay when you ride with the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority. PSTA has adopted a new contactless payment system called Flamingo Fares. And PSTA's Chief Development Officer, Cassandra Borchers, is here to talk about that. Cassandra, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Chris. It's really nice to be here. Thank you.
Before we discuss Flamingo Fares, I'd like to provide our listeners a little more on who you are. Can you tell us a little more on your background, as well as your role and what it means to be Chief Development Officer at PSTA?
Absolutely. I came to the Tampa Bay region about 20 years ago to work on a project called the Tampa Rail Project. My first job out of graduate school was working on an environmental impact statement for that project. And we did get a record of decision from the Federal Transit Administration. But working in major capital investments is where I started my career. As I moved on, I was in consulting and did a lot of regional plans. So one in South Florida. And in fact, the inaugural T-BARTA plan, I was the project manager for the consultant team on that project when T-BARTA was first created. And so the regional aspects of what T-BARTA does and what it brings to the table are pretty important to me. But after I left consulting, I went to PSTA because I just got this great opportunity to be the Chief Development Officer for Brad Miller, who is the CEO at the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority. And this has been sort of my dream all along as a transportation planner, is to be in an agency and really helping to shape the future of public transportation in our county and in our region. For me at PSTA, I have several departments that work under me, including long-range planning, as well as system planning, but also scheduling and looking at just the routes themselves, their performance, as well as updating them 3 times a year. In addition to that, I have the public engagement team. So making sure that all of the projects that we have at PSTA have a public conversation attached to them, and that we're really doing our jobs as public servants to communicate with the public about the projects that we do. And so we've just recently gotten more into the statistical side. So non-financial statistics is also something that we do. But a lot of it is about the strategy of the agency. A lot of the innovation projects come out of my department as well. So SunRunner started in our department when it was in the planning phase. AVA project for autonomous vehicles is now in my department as well. And also looking at new ferry service as a partner for PSTA. But the most important role I think I have in the world is being a wife and a mother, and I have 2 beautiful boys. My husband is also in the transit industry, and pre-pandemic, we did a lot of world travel with the boys, but there's always a transit aspect. In fact, one of our last trips we took to Spain, there's a tram train that goes across the island of Majorca, and we took the boys on it, and that was a pretty spectacular trip. But every trip we take has big transit as part of it.
Well, that's all very interesting. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you and PSTA for being great partners in T-BARTA and our efforts. We really greatly appreciate that. Before we talk about the other things PSTA is doing, we do have to talk about COVID and the pandemic because it impacted transit nationwide. It continues to impact us, and we continue to evolve because of that. Tell us a little more about how PSTA dealt with the pandemic and how it may impact operations now and into the future.
We saw the pandemic coming. We have a lot of people in our agency that are avid news readers, and we were watching it come across the globe. And so even before things really started to heat up here, we had already started to triple our sanitization of the buses. And so thanks to our maintenance department, we were very well prepared in that area. And then in mid-March, The administration staff was sent home. We started to limit the number of riders per bus, to create some social distancing, and also started to be fare free, specifically designed to keep our operators safe, as well as keep the passengers from bunching and keep our passengers safe. And so we did make quite a few changes right at the beginning, flexing our schedules and the times of day that we were operating in order to make sure that we had a very reliable service, even in the context of the pandemic. I think one of the things that we did really well at the beginning was working very closely with our union. And so none of the changes that we made to our service were done without their assistance or strong communication with them. I think that made it very successful. We also followed the guidelines from both the FTA and other federal agencies to make sure that we were having face coverings and things like that. But one of the things we did as an agency from the data side was start to look at how our passenger loads were affecting our ability to make the service. And so because we had this cap of 15 riders per bus, we were passing people by. And in some cases, those people needed to go to work, and not being able to take a trip on PSTA really impacted their ability to continue to live. And so as part of that, we did two things. One is we looked at those routes that were reaching those limits and were able to add frequency during key times. And so we looked at the onboard data from our new automatic passenger counters on an hour by hour basis. And that helped us increase the service in those specific times. But we also leveraged our relationship with Uber, Lyft, and a local taxi company to create an essential workers program. And that essential workers program allowed people who were not able to use the regular service because of the changes we had to make for COVID. It allowed them to still get to work. And this is in complement to our other suite of services like our TD late shift and our direct connect service that we already had in place. And so I think one of the things that we learned is communication is number one, always the thing that we need to start with, whether that's communication with our union, communication with our riders, but then also the data can really be important as we start to make these decisions. One of the great stories that came out of the pandemic was some of the businesses that didn't know how much they relied on us. One restaurateur on the beach wasn't necessarily a huge fan of PSTA, but when the pandemic hit and we had to reduce our service, he realized what an impact to his employees and their ability to get to work we had. And so he called us up and he said, I didn't know how much I needed you until you weren't there. And that was just such a great story in understanding the value that we bring to the community and how critical we are to the economy and people's ability to get to work. The other thing that really I think is a long-term effect of us not charging fares and then looking at what other systems are doing with fare-free systems is looking at how we are assessing which segments of our community should really be getting a discounted fare. And so we have a lot of discounted fare programs already, but right now we are doing some analysis on some additional fare-free categories. We'll think over the next year, we'll continue to take a look at that. Right now, we're looking at those people who are above the poverty threshold that allows them to be part of the Transportation Disadvantage Program, but still not able to get a large reduced fare. And so if they're called the ALICE households, the asset limited, income constrained employed. So people who are working and really contributing, but still not getting the support that they need from the transportation system. And so we'll be taking a deeper dive on that and how we can support that community as well as we move forward.
Great information. As you mentioned, you were fare free for the pandemic, but things started to transition this past summer. As we record this in mid-August, where do things stand now regarding fares at PSTA?
So we are part of the American Bus Benchmarking Group. And as part of that group, we were taking very careful consideration to what others were doing in the national space about fare free. In March and April and even May of 2020, many, if not all of the systems were fare free. And after a while, fares started to come back online city by city. We were one of the last to institute fares back on our system, and one of the last to do it nationally. And the reason that we were one of the last is because we wanted to maintain our stance that we were there to protect our operators and our riders. And if we were going to start charging fares again, we wanted to make sure that we could launch Flamingo Fares, which is our contactless payment system, at the same time that we started to institute fares again. And so that's where we are right now. Midsummer, we were ready to launch Flamingo internally, and we were feeling like the pandemic was starting to contract and people were feeling good about getting back to work. And so we saw increases on our bus system. And we also said this might be the time to bring back fares. So on July 5th, we started charging fares again. However, at the same time, we told our passengers, if you get a Flamingo card and you start to use it, you will continue to ride free until September 1st. And so the reason that we did this was twofold. One is because going from a year of not charging fares to charging fares is sort of a shock to the system, but also getting used to a new fare payment system was something that we wanted to ease our riders into. And so we've been able to do that and have a very high adoption rate because people could still ride free. And so today, as we're sitting here in mid-August, people are still riding free if they have a Flamingo Fare card. So it encourages them to get one and to use it.
And Flamingo Fares has been in the works for years. It just so happened the pandemic impacted the implementation of that for both you and Hart. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Can you give me a little bit more of an overview on what Flamingo Fares is, how you're using it now, and what people need to know?
I think from the start, it was specifically designed to be a regional system. And I think this is really important. We do have limited cross-county routes and limited cross-county travel, and we make it harder when you have to buy two different fare media. And so the conversation at a regional level started as we should really be all on the same system because, as you know, Chris, people don't really think about whether they cross the county line or not. They just want to get to their job or to their school or to some kind of social event. And so having one fare payment system was really critical to the impetus for starting Flamingo. And I think that was really important. Flamingo Fares is a contactless system. It is a smart card, but also a mobile app. And it allows us to start think about reducing the amount of cash we take on the bus and increasing the speed of boarding and therefore the increase in speed of the trip if we don't have to have cash on our system. And that doesn't mean that we eliminated cash. We just want to greatly reduce it.
Great. I think there are some other benefits too. Any of those you want to talk about now, specifically as it relates probably to there's some cash savings as well involved for those who use Flamingo Fares?
Having the Flamingo Fares account for someone is a great opportunity to ride more and pay less. And we call that in the industry fare capping. And what that means is that a person, if it's on their account, they will pay no more than $5 a day for PSTA and no more than $70 a month. And so right now we have people who might buy a daily pass every day, and that might cost them $120 a month, but they don't have the money for a monthly pass right at the beginning of the month. So this allows a pay-as-you-go system, but still getting your best fair price. So you don't have to decide, am I going to ride 3 days this week, or am I going to ride 7 days this week, or I'm going to ride every day for a month? Everybody gets the best fare. So when people get on the PSTA system with the Flamingo Fares card, the first time you tap is $2.25. The second time you tap is $2.25. Third time is 50 cents. Fourth time and after is nothing. So you don't have to buy a day pass. You don't have to buy a weekly pass. The great example of this is somebody who buys a weekly pass is $25 a week. And so if they can come up with $25 a week at the beginning of the week, they can buy a 7-day pass, and that saves them about 2 days worth of fares. However, if they do it for 3 weeks, they've then earned themselves a monthly pass, and the last week is free.
Well, let's talk about capping just a little bit more because there's a lot there to unpack. Are you capping based on how much you would spend a week, a month, a year? How are these caps kind of calculated? And With that, do you have a sense on how much I can save because of fare capping by using the card as opposed to just paying as I go?
Well, I think it depends on how much you use the system, right? Which again, you don't have to decide up front because you'll always get the best fare. The fare capping by day happens in a 24-hour cycle, and that happens from about 2 a.m. on. So we close our system at 2 a.m. So anything that you start at the morning at 4 or 5 a.m. all the way to 2 a.m. the next day is considered one day. And so you'll never pay more than $5 in that period. And then the $70 monthly pass cap starts at the very beginning of the month. So if you start on September 1st and you ride every day, it'll take about 14 to 16 days to reach the fare cap, and then you ride the rest of the month free. Right now, we have people who are paying much more than that, doing dailies or using cash on board, and this really gives them an opportunity to keep their budgets strictly at $70 a month. Now, we do still have the Passport Pass, which is $85, and that allows people to pay at the very beginning of the month, $85, and ride on the PSTA system and the HART system with unlimited rides. We did not remove that from our opportunities for fares for the riders, but if you do occasionally ride HART, you'll have a little account on your Flamingo card, and you'll just pay the fare over there just as you would at PSTA. Those systems are different. The fare capping is separate. So if you do go from Pinellas County to Hillsborough County and take a HART bus, you'll pay $2 to ride their bus that day.
Great. And as you mentioned, yes, HART is using Flamingo Fares as well too. We're focusing today on what PSTA is using it for, but you can use Flamingo as HART as well. So it's great that both counties have adopted this new system. Let's talk a little bit more about the process itself, how it works, starting with how do you get a card or an app, then open up your account, set it up, et cetera, as you continue to use it, using transit and making your payments.
So the easiest thing to do is use the app because that's an automatic registration. It's on your phone. You could download Flamingo Fares, has a cute little flamingo as the icon for the app. You sign up using a credit or debit card, and you are set to go. Slip the phone as a QR code under the reader, and you're fine. You'll automatically get your fare capping. For card users, so these are people who don't necessarily want to use the app. Some of our discounted riders prefer to use the card, and for our transportation disadvantaged program, you must use the card. So the card is a plastic card. There's several ways to get a hold of one. One, of course, is the easiest way is go to a PSTA transit center, and we have 5 across Pinellas County. And until September 1st, you can get one for free. After September 1st, the cards are $3 each. You can load the card at any of those locations of PSTA locations, but we also have an entire retail network where somebody can go to a convenience store. And so we have a map on flamingofares.com, and it pinpoints all of the locations within the county that you could go and reload the card. Some places you can use a debit or credit, but all of them you can use cash to load money onto the card. And by loading it onto the account, that is the way you get the best fare. And so we're really encouraging people to put your cash on the card, either at PSTA or at one of these retail locations, and you always get the best fare instead of doing it on the bus. Of course, if you don't want to go to any of those locations and you have access to a computer, you can go online at flamingofares.com, register your card, and put on money. And once again, if you do not want to register your card with us, you can put money on it using all of those ways, including the website. But we do very much encourage people to register the card, because if for any reason you lose the card, any value that you have on that card, it can be protected. So let's say at the beginning of the month, you put $30 on the card and you immediately lose it. Go to any one of our customer service centers or even call our customer service agents, give them your name, some details that you would have had to give us as far as registering the card, and we will close the card and issue you a new one. And so it really does give people the opportunity to save as much money as they can. And even if something that not so great happens and they lose the card, that balance is still protected. And so please, if you're using Flamingo, register your card.
Now, that's a great feature because if we carry cash, you can always lose cash and there's no replacement for that. But being able to put money on your account, be able to travel wherever you want, and if the card gets lost, know that it's going to be protected and replaced. I think that's a great feature and a great benefit. So the online portal itself, I imagine it works very much like if you've ever managed your bank account online, transferred money, used PayPal, anything like that. It's going to operate very similarly. Is that correct?
Yes, I think for most people, if you have used SunPass, it works just like that. It's really quite easy. There's not much complicated to it, and if you do have any issues with it, our customer service line is all ready to take the questions and make sure that you can navigate through it.
You've had Flamingo Fares out there for the past couple of weeks. It's a short sample size, but are you getting any feedback yet? And if so, what are you hearing?
So from the riders, we're hearing it's very easy to use. They very much like it, but it's also free right now. And so we're getting a lot of positive comments. If there are glitches in the system, we're able to fix those now, and nobody really gets upset because we're still free. And so we're working those all out, and those get fewer and fewer as we get closer to the deadline of actually charging fares of September 1st. And from the operators, they said it's been really great when they can get people on really fast. They just tap, 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 and everybody's on. They do have gotten a few questions from time to time, and I think we're still working out people's questions right now, but we're ready for September 1st to really start charging fares. And I think the public is very much too. We did make some great policy decisions right at the beginning. I think having 2 months of fare-free time for people to get used to the Flamingo card was really important. So we've been operational for about 6 weeks. And when I checked yesterday on the number of taps that have been used on the Flamingo system, it's been about 650,000 taps. So we've had some great success early on, and that really is escalating quickly. So every day it gets faster and faster, higher and higher, the daily number of taps that we're getting onto the Flamingo system. And so we're hoping that by September 1st, not only will people be ready to use it and familiar with the system and happy, but then they'll ride even more because now they know it can save some money.
It sounds great. Sounds like you're off to a great start. You talked a little earlier about the other payment options, and I do want to review those again. You mentioned Passport, and you're still accepting cash, but let's just go through the options PSTA customers have as things stand right now to pay for transit. What options remain available now? And can you tell us if those are going to be changing in the near future, at least as far as you know?
Sure. So because we hadn't been charging fares and we hadn't been selling our magnetic stripe cards for more than a year, we decided as an agency we would no longer sell those magnetic stripe cards to the general public. And so the only thing that you can get at a PSTA outlet is the Flamingo card or assistance with your app. And so if you do get on the bus, you can still pay with cash. We will always still accept cash on the bus. And until the end of the year, you can get on the bus and get a day pass, magnetic stripe day pass. And the reason that we wanted to give this time between now and the end of the year for people to be able to get on the bus and get a magnetic stripe, a paper card, is so that they have the time to get to a transit center or a retailer that sells the cards and loads the cards. And they have time to do that. And they don't feel like if their travels don't take them to one of those centers, that they've been forced to do something else. So still allow cash. Magnetic stripe cards will still be accepted. So we have in the past had some half price sales from time to time, and we had one just at the end of 2019 and people stocked up on monthly passes. Those still can be used through the end of the year through December 31st. And then we'll make sure that everybody is using Flamingo after that. So January 1st, 2022 is our hard stop for magnetic stripe cards.
Well, you've given us a good overview of Flamingo, and I'm going to move on to a couple other non-Flamingo questions, but I want to make sure I haven't missed anything related to Flamingo. I think it's a great way to pay for transit now, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing hundreds of thousands of taps. Any other information about Flamingo that you want listeners to know about? Anything we've missed here?
I think in terms of access, we really do want people to use the retail network. So we do have a private provider for the retail network that includes many convenience stores, including all 7-Elevens and some mom and pop convenience stores across the county. And we're adding more every single day. We think we have a couple of new large retailers that may come online soon. And so I would really encourage people to find the nearest place to their house or to their work that they can get a Flamingo card and reload those cards. And again, all of that is on Flamingo Fares, and we have a big map of the county. You can just click on one of those dots that's closest to you and make it really convenient for people, whether you use cash or debit or credit. It should be really easy and very accessible.
Excellent. Very good. Well, congratulations on a great launch and a great program with Flamingo Fares. You have a lot of projects in the works, and one of the things going on right now has to do with the need for transit bus operators. I know you are actively recruiting, as transit agencies across the country are doing, but some really good news associated with that. You are increasing the pay for transit bus operators. You have a new union contract, and that is great news for the men and women who are so vital to public transportation. Tell us about that, and tell us about the opportunities that are available for PSTA should anybody be listening and looking for a new career.
So right now we are looking to fill about 40 to 50 positions as bus operators. And so please do look at psta.net and apply for that position. We do offer some great benefits. And as you mentioned, we did increase the steps so people can elevate their pay very quickly at PSTA. In the last union agreement, we set a minimum for bus operators at $15 an hour. And so we've been at that $15 for at least 3 years. But now we've allowed people to increase their pay, not just after a year, but after 6 months. And so what that does is starts to show people how much we appreciate them and appreciate the work that they do and do it much more quickly. In addition to that, we do have great health benefits, great educational benefits. So if you are looking to go to college and you want PSTA to support you, we have entire programs to do that. So we are looking for quite a few people to be bus operators, and it is a great system to be in.
If someone wants to apply for a job or learn more about your career opportunities, where should they go?
PSTA.net, our HR department checks that regularly and updates it. And they've been great to get through all of the applicants. We do have a class, a commercial driver's license class, and how to be a PSTA bus operator. You do not have to have a CDL to come work for us. We will help you get one and then put you behind the wheel of the bus to make all the magic happen.
Well, two other projects I want to ask you about while I have you here. One is AVA, the autonomous vehicle project that you tested in downtown St. Petersburg. T-BART is now partnering with you in a test project in Dunedin. Tell us about what that is and any information you're learning so far.
So the transportation industry is really moving towards a number of things, and we say it's autonomous, it's electric, it's connected, and it's shared. Well, PSTA has already done shared with our Direct Connect and our partnership with Uber and Lyft and taxi companies. We're definitely connected because we have our transit app and a lot of technologies that allow us to communicate with our riders. We have our electric bus fleet, expanding that every day. We have 6 electric buses on the road right now, 2 more on order, and hoping to get more to make our fleet 100% electric. And so the last thing for us to tackle was autonomous. We have been part of research projects for large autonomous vehicles, but we really felt like as an agency, we needed to take a small step to understand what the autonomous technology does for the system, how does it work, and then how do people react to it, because it is kind of unnerving to get on a vehicle that doesn't have an operator. And so we partnered with a company called Beep, and we had a very successful program in downtown St. Petersburg, and that was opened in late 2020. We were there for 3 months, and we had the highest ridership in the entire Beep system at the time. So it was a very successful program, getting people to ride Ava. It's a cute little salmon colored vehicle, only runs about 13 miles per hour, but really starts to give us an understanding of how does that technology work and how does it work in the context of other traffic. So this is one of the few pilot programs that was done in mixed traffic. And so, as you mentioned, we're also bringing Ava to Dunedin and then later Clearwater. And we're very excited about that, to look at how those different areas react to Ava, how she operates within the context of those environments, and then give people across Pinellas County an opportunity to ride the service. We've gotten some very good feedback from our riders about using it. A lot of people have just tried it just to try it. So we haven't quite made it a real transportation thing yet, but it's a baby step towards what we would consider maybe someday having large vehicles be autonomous and driverless. So I think we already have some autonomous features on our bus, some sensors that help the operator drive better, but being truly driverless, I think is still a ways away, but we're going to be ready when it comes.
I've been on it. It's a fun vehicle to ride for sure. And that's the way we're going in the future. And another exciting project is SunRunner. So before you go, I wanted to ask you about the status on that. T-BARTA is especially excited about that. It's the first bus rapid transit project in our area, connecting downtown St. Petersburg with St. Pete Beach. And I know you're going to be launching that pretty soon. That project's moving along very well. Tell us about SunRunner, where it stands, and when we can expect to be jumping on board.
So SunRunner has been in the works for at least a decade. We're running from, as you mentioned, downtown St. Pete to the beaches. It's about 10 miles long, has about 17 stations or station pairs. It's going to cut the travel time from downtown to the beach by at least 35%. So we're really looking at faster travel in this major corridor, which is the highest ridership corridor in the entire region. And so I think we made a great case to the federal government. So half of the capital program is being paid for through the capital investment program at the Federal Transit Administration. And then we also have a great partnership with the city of St. Pete and the Florida Department of Transportation to help us make up the other half. And so PSTA has been moving through the construction of the stations. It is very interesting how we're operating on First Ave North and First Ave South on the inside lane closest to Central Avenue. So we're actually doing left side running in the city of St. Petersburg. And so we have these very cool island stations on First Ave North and South. We've also partnered with the city and a local artist so that the stations will have glass panels that reflect the area that they're in. So very specific to each neighborhood. And it also creates like this mural effect along the corridor. So we are very excited about that. In addition, the bus itself is beautiful and amazing. It is this great aqua color that reminds us where we are, which is the Sunshine City. And it also has a big picture of Mr. Sun. We partnered with the local artist, Chad Mize, to recreate that for us on the bus. Additionally, we will be having bikes on the bus instead of on the front. And our own maintenance department has created a new kind of bike rack to be inside the bus. So you'll hold 4 bikes on the bus. There'll be an upright with an assisted lift. And so we're really excited for those to be showcased as part of the service so that people feel like they can take anything, whether they walk to SunRunner or ride their bike to SunRunner, that they can get on. There's so much happening around that project because it is the biggest project that we're doing right now. We also have a transit-oriented development grant from the Federal Transit Administration, where we're looking at the land use around the stations. Again, partnering with the city of St. Petersburg, the city of South Pasadena, and Forward Pinellas, who is the countywide land use regulatory agency, to look at the areas around the stations and what kind of impact these investments in transportation have on the communities. So we'll be holding a series of station forums for the neighborhoods in those areas. And we've also held at least one, and we'll have another one soon, of a developers forums. We're talking to local developers about what would they like to see in this corridor and how can they help develop this corridor. And so it really becomes not just a transportation project, but a community building project from downtown to the beach. So we're very excited for it to launch. Everybody can see the stations coming up on First Ave South and in downtown, and soon we'll be doing the ones on First Ave North. But we're looking to launch in the summer of 2022, and we couldn't be more excited about it.
Now, we're excited about that too. And I do want to take a minute to talk about what BRT is, Bus Rapid Transit, because T-BARTA has its own BRT interstate project that we're working on now that would connect Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas counties along I-275. But some of the feedback we get from those who don't understand the technology is, well, yeah, it's another bus. We've got buses. Hillsborough has buses. Why do we need another bus? And I think there's a misunderstanding as to the premium type of transit this is As we've described it, it has in many ways rail-like experience, but without that fixed route and the expense you have to have with rail. But it's hard to get some people excited about something that's bus oriented because they're used to typical public transit. Tell us about SunRunner and what makes BRT special. Why should we be excited about BRT?
Well, first of all, it's all about the service, right? It's about being faster service for us downtown to the beach. And that's one of the key features of having a bus rapid transit system. Another key feature is having it branded. And we have, as I mentioned, all of the buses are branded SunRunner. And when you go inside the bus, you actually do feel like you are in a rail vehicle. The ride is very smooth. We're having hybrid electric buses, so very excited about that. And we do have some docking systems, so you'll get very close to the platform. So not only do you have a place to wait, it's very comfortable, it's branded, and it is fixed. There is a feature on our SunRunner, which is the bus and turn lanes. And so these lanes, which is where the bus is running, is going to be painted red. So it's a red pigmented asphalt. So you will know that that is the lane that the bus runs in. We do allow cars to get in to make turns. However, one of the features of a rail system is its fixed nature and the ability for the rider to know that it is not going to deviate from that route. And so you give that assurance to both the rider and to local developers that this is a system that is not going to move anytime soon. And so that really is the catalyst for allowing that community building portion of what makes BRT different than regular bus service, is that we can't move it next Thursday or at our next service change. It has to be there because we've made the capital investment in that semi-dedicated lane.
Well, that's all great information. And I will tell you, T-BARTA will be on the first line to get on board SunRunner. So we're excited about that. We look forward to that next year. Cassandra, thanks for all the information you provided today, especially on Flamingo Fares. As mentioned, HART has also adopted this fare payment option and is in consideration for other counties as well. I am Chris Jadek, and you've been listening to On the Go, the podcast from the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority.